They've been like that for hours. I'm kind of scared. Hi folks, I'm Matt and welcome to My Expanded Universe, a show where I go through the entire EU in chronological order as best I know how. Now, I was going to take this time to go through some more stories in the chronology, but a comment from last week, Cranite Star, got me thinking that maybe I should go back and look over some things. His question was, why have I passed up a few short stories? Now, the only thing I can imagine is he was talking about Star Wars Tales, the comic book, which I've talked about before and said I wasn't going to mention them all. But for his sake, I went back and looked through them, and so today I want to address why I skipped over those. The first one would be, it's called Yaddle's Tale, The One Below. It was written by Dean Martyr, and it was in Star Wars Tales number 5. Now, for the longest, I thought that this story was not canon. And that was the thing I hated about the Star Wars Tales, because the only thing that Lucasfilm told us about Star Wars Tales is, well, if it's too silly, it's not canon. How do you find too silly? Because there's a lot of silly stories in Star Wars Tales. One of the reasons I really didn't like reading it that much. So this is one of those stories, none of it was too silly, it just had too much going on, and people doubted its canonicity for years. Now, I'll be honest, I have not looked it back up since then, and since then there's been some updated developments that I totally missed. For instance, they said it was mentioned in, this Yaddle's adventure was mentioned in Cloak of Deception and one of the books from Jedi Quest, I can't remember which one. But the thing is though, I didn't know that. I don't remember if that stuff did connect or if they did mention it. Like I said, it could have happened. I just don't remember it when I was reading through it. But anyway, sure, yeah, we can put that one back in the canon for Matt's Expanded Universe. It's going to happen hundreds of years ago, before Episode 1. I think that's where it fits somewhere in there, so you would read it probably before all the Jedi Apprentice books. All right, now, the next reason I skipped over a few of them. If you noticed, there were a few Mace Windu stories from Star Wars Tales that I just totally skipped over. Why? Because I don't like them? Because I hate Mace Windu? Or because they were all part of Star Wars Tales number 13. Now, Star Wars Tales number 13, I had misfiled in my comic book collection. That's right, folks, big reveal here. But out of all my single comic books, I did not have them in chronological order, or as best as I thought. And more so with Star Wars Tales issue number 13. I found it in a completely different comic book box, which kind of puzzles me for a minute, but now that I think about it, I bet this is what happened. You see, I wouldn't read my comic books until the 4-part issue or 6-part issue would end. So when it came to a 4-part issue ending, I would read all 4 issues. So what I did is once I read them through, I'd file them all away. Well, Star Wars Tales came out individually. You could read that on its own. What I must have done is read all these books together, stacked them, filed the 4-issue series together with Star Wars Tales unintentionally. So when I was shifting all through these, preparing for the videos, I totally did not have Star Wars 13 where it was supposed to be. And I guess I can't count either, because sure enough it's missing. It goes 12, 14. So let me go ahead and address all the tales from Star Wars 13. Now, to be honest, the Star Wars Tales 13, all of it could have happened within the same spot. I know that Stones, written by Hayden Blackman, was actually about Mace Windu when he was 14 looking for crystals for his lightsaber. But remember, that's a flashback, so again, this could have happened at the same time. What I think of Stones? It's okay, it's forgettable. The next one would be Children of the Force, written by Jason Hall. That one had Mace Windu saving some infant Jedi, which was okay too. None of these really held any meaning for me, or I don't remember them that well either. Not very memorable, I should say. Next was Survivors. It was all in the same Star Wars Tales 13. That was by Jim Kruger, and that's where Mace Windu takes down some kind of dictator. I think his name was Uda Khalid or something. Anyway, that was okay. That was maybe more interesting than the other ones. Mace is a very good character, by the way. Let me just add that. He's a great character. I love Mace Windu as a character. I don't feel any of these short stories in Star Wars Tales did him justice. So after that, there was one other one in that one. It was Secrets of Tet Annie, I think. I'm going to probably mispronounce that. That was written by Fabian. I'm going to mispronounce the last name, but Nessicolii or whatever. And that one was where Mace Windu helps out some archaeologists investigate an ancient temple. And something weird happens. This is one of the few instances, and the only ones that I think, where you have time, not time travel, but maybe a time paradox, I guess. It was a little weird. So for me, I didn't know. Like I said, I really didn't like a lot of the Star Wars Tales comics. So for me, I really didn't ever like that. All of these stories can take place technically at the same time, including Stones, which is a flashback. And you could have read them about now, and I think you'd be fine, even though I think chronologically they are supposed to take place way later. So sorry about that. And the third set of stories I missed was totally my fault. I had them written in my notes. I have a ton of notes. And when I was doing the Jedi Apprentice books, there are 2 short stories from Star Wars Tales that take place in between the books, chronologically. I had that written down, but because I wanted to focus on the books, I didn't focus on the short stories. I said, you know what, just get to the Star Wars Tales, and I have a little note that says, talk about it later. I totally forgot, after doing all those videos over the 3 weeks, I totally forgot to go back to those short stories. So let me go back to Star Wars Tales. The first one was Mythology. It was in Star Wars Tales number 14. It was written by Chris Eliopoulos, and it takes place between the Jedi Apprentice books number 4 and 5. Now, this is just Qui-Gon telling young Obi-Wan a story of why the Jedi do not seek attachment, or why attachment is bad for the Jedi. What I think about this story, it was awful. I hated it. I really don't recommend that you read these Star Wars Tales in between Jedi Apprentice books, because I think it's really going to take you out of the story. Now, the next one happens in Star Wars Tales number 1. It's called Life, Death, and the Living Force. It was written by Jim Woodring, and it takes place between Jedi Apprentice books 9 and 10. And this is just basically a short adventure of young Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. It's okay for a Star Wars Tales story, but it doesn't go well with the flow of the books. Again, Jude Watson did such a great job showing the relationship between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. No one else has equaled that, in my opinion. So if you read that Star Wars Tales in the middle of those 2 books, it kind of feels like it didn't belong. I don't really know where to put it, though. You may want to put it afterwards. This is just for reading pleasure. Remember, this is my expanded universe, by the way. But I probably would read that one after. I'd read both of these after reading Jedi Apprentice, okay? Because I think they could both fit in that era. Okay, folks, looks like that's all the time I have for today. We'll be back with more Star Wars Tales next week.